Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network. Once again, as per usual, I'm ScottyD, and tonight we've got the Steel City Showdown Tournament preview for you guys. We've got Alex. How you doing, mate?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, going all right, brother. Going all right. And we've also got Hayden. How you doing, mate?
I'm fantastic and spicy as always.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. So, if you haven't caught any of our tournament preview streams before, what we do is we talk about the event, we talk about the guys running it, get a bit of insight about their personal hobby experience. We talk about the format the tournament's playing, as well as the players that are in attendance, the meta, and maybe even look at some of the teams that are in attendance as well, and kind of look at their faction breakdowns. Now, this obviously is also released on YouTube later in the week before we do the live coverage of the tournament, which I will be traveling up to Newcastle this weekend to cover it live myself, and it's going to be an awesome time up there. Plenty of interstate faces coming, so it's going to be awesome to meet a lot of folks that I haven't met before as well, which is going to be great. So if you want to catch these live, make sure you're staying tuned to our Facebook page or Instagram, or our socials are in the Discord, and you'll be able to be notified when we do tournament stream previews. So to start us off, Hayden, welcome in, and why don't you do a bit of a brief introduction about yourself? Talk about your hobbying history, maybe what factions you play, and how long you've been in the hobby, how long you've been playing tournaments, that kind of thing.
Brief introduction with my hobby experience. I've always played Warhammer, like since I was probably about, I think I was 5 when I got my first Warhammer model. It was just, we lived in England for a little bit. There's a Games Workshop or a hobby store in every little mall because it's so cold. Everyone hides inside and paints their little models. So you can really tell where the foundation of the hobby comes from. But I just really have always enjoyed it. But I picked up competitive 40k in like late 7th, and then really kicked off into 8th edition. One of my favorite memories of wargaming was the first time I went away with the Overwatch team to WinterCon, which was the first kind of big GT of 8th edition. I think it was about 50 or 60 person, and we were really like, oh, this is a big event in Australia, 60 people. Looking back now, in retrospect, it's probably not that massive. But so ever since then, I just kind of caught the competitive bug, but the bug for being to helping the community grow and just being involved and helping out other people, and something I really my hobbies really deferred away from playing the game into running events to help the community and build the community, and just really enjoy that side of things for myself.
Yep.
My factions, all of 8th edition, 8th and 9th edition, I've been pretty much all of 9th edition I was dedicated to Custodes, and then all of 8th edition I was dedicated to Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights. And then 10th edition, who knows, I might have a little weird little side hobby project that might materialize eventually, and it may or may not be fruit.
I'm getting everyone on it. When you started, you were 5, right? When you started, so there's heaps of models back then.
Literally, picked up my first model. It was the me and my older brother were forced to share the Warhammer Fantasy Battles 3rd edition starter box with the Bretonnians and Orcs, classic, single pose models and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was great.
See, the benefit of getting started back then was nearly everything was resin, but you were in the UK, so there wasn't any heat, so it was fine. So none of your models will melt.
No, resin didn't exist back then. That was
it was metal.
That was before. Yeah, it was pewter and everything. So if you walked into a Games Workshop store, particularly in England, because they had Games Workshops, we only had 5 or 6 of them back then, but everywhere over the UK they had the actual Citadel retail stores. There was a whole wall of blister packs. Now you have the characters with the Rangers, that you would just walk in and there was a whole wall of blister packs, and they were priced by a lettering system. Mm-hmm. This one's A, this one's B, this one's C, and that was $15. So you could get 2 Space Marines for $15, with special weapons like plasma guns or something, and that was the only way of getting Dark Angels with plasma guns was that blister pack, and there was just a wall and wall of them. It was wild. It's so much different now.
Yeah, when I started the hobby, I remember the blister pack wall, but I also remember the plastic kits as well and the metal, and so yeah, probably a number of years after you, I started. What, it was been 2005 for me. So going on 18 years in the hobby now. So quite a long stretch for sure for all three of us, I'm gonna guess.
I started when I was 27, only 3 years ago.
Oh wow!
Years ago. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
What was the driver that got you into it? Like, because like I feel like a lot of people that got into that are like similar age to you and I, Alex, picked it up through like video games, like Dawn of War series or something like that. Like, what was it? What brought you into it? Like, that's what that interests me.
Just reconnecting with a mate, and then he said, "Hey, you want to do something like this?" I'm like, "Yeah, cool." Did that, and then I think what solidified it, because I was very minorly into it, what solidified it was COVID.
Yeah.
And, picking up the hobby there and getting knee deep in it, basically. That's what kind of got me, addicted.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and the plastic crack addiction really kicks in after that, right?
That's it. Better than petrol.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, and so basically, like, just recently more recently, I've just been trying to kick off Southern Cross Wargaming with the Steel City Showdown.
Yeah, awesome. So do you want to jump in and talk a bit more about Southern Cross Wargaming and kind of the inception of Steel City Showdown, what kind of brought it on, and just kind of give us a bit of a background on that?
Yeah, easy. Southern Cross Wargaming is more of just a formalization of like my personal and like the surrounding tournament organizing efforts that I put on, and also like trying to bring on some more of particularly local guys in the Hunter Valley and Newcastle area, and Central Coast, but encouraging more people to run events, small events, local stores and stuff like that. Trying to bolster the community and like really exemplify how easy it is to jump into competitive wargaming or just like match play, as we would call it, but like just a formal wargaming, and how great of a hobby it is. And like I find it's super easy if you kind of attach like a brand name to that. I was trying to do that like just under my own name and my friends like and other people's names like Alex and stuff like that, and you can find it quite difficult to kind of hit a business stride, like hit businesses in that stride. And by formalizing it under a name and giving it like a logo and a brand and everything like that, you really kind of start being able to structure and interact with those institutions, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of interact on the business side of things as well as the community side. So what we're really trying to do is just build the community and just show everyone how much of a good time you can have playing with little toy soldiers.
Yeah, awesome. And so yeah, Steel City Showdown. This is going to be the first 10th edition tournament we're covering here on the ATWN, which is absolutely awesome.
The chapter calls and we answer.
And so, particularly with it being a teams tournament, like it is, I think it's the first teams event in New South Wales. I know it's not the first one in the country, because Queensland beats the punch, of course.
Yeah, we thought we were going to be the first one, but they transitioned when the dates of 10th edition was announced and all that. They transitioned to 10th, so we had it for a little bit when we were planning the event, and then they jumped in and snaked that number one spot. But I'm not salty at all. Don't hate me for it.
We have some benefits though, right? Like, I mean, the fact is, like, we're going to be the first event really testing out like WTC formats and terrain sets and everything like that. I mean, it did take some time for 10th to develop that standard as well. People have been able to get some games in, and instead of it being kind of a random wild draw, I think you're going to see a lot more competitive lists, formats, structures. People have been able to, adapt and get practice in here as well. So I'm really keen to see this iteration, especially for, myself, when I'll be going to Belgium, a week and a half after that. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, and like we kind of timed it around we were planning the timing around WTC and what we were supposing was going to be 10th when we first kind of try to book venues and stuff like that. Because with venues in metropolitan areas, you've got to book 12 months ahead of time and all that kind of stuff. We really were trying to cut it fine with the WTC, and what we might see is solidifying meta. And in no way has 10th settled. Like, we haven't got any codexes or any, like, there's still like a lot of glaring issues. Alex and I are answering questions every day on very small single wording issues that not even the WTC FAQs have covered yet, because there's just so many little things. So no way is 10th solidified, but like, I think we've got like the foundation of what everything's going to step off of now. And we could truly see like a more competitive environment developing, a more balanced environment as well, with the point changes and things like that. We can see that GW is actually responding, which is great. So we're really excited to see like what we can exemplify at Steel City as like some premium 10th edition gameplay.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going to be great to see on stream as well. I'm really excited to see some of the crazy matchups that'll happen just in the teams pairing process.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, that's it. Teams is a wonderful format, like in so many different ways. It balances the game out of like you being able to exclude or include more different factions. Because if you went to a singles event at the moment, it's going to be 50% Eldar or Custodes or Knights because they're the hot thing. But at our event, they can only take up 20% of the event. And you don't have to play Eldar after Eldar after Eldar on a winning streak, if you will, because your team is going to have to balance around that only single Eldar build. And you might even just have like your Eldar player versus theirs constantly. Those kind of things change in the team environment, as well as like you get to come together as a group of mates and achieve something together and really have that sense of camaraderie. And that's what I really think, that's what makes me personally very passionate about team events, and like why us at the team at Southern Cross really try and push that, is because it's such a it brings it away from being an individual achievement and like mates and patting mates on the back, and it's real community driven. And that's what like I see as a great future of 40k and wargaming in general, is like teams is a format that like groups can get behind, not just individuals.
Yeah, I think it's worth also probably mentioning, Hayden, if you want to take it over, how the team format works. Because I'm sure some people will be across it, but there's a lot of people obviously getting into 10. And then we can talk maybe a little bit about like how that differs with terrain and missions as well.
Yeah. So like the team format, generally there's two kind of primarily accepted team formats. There's the ATC in America and WTC in Europe. And WTC is coming up in August. What date is it, Alex? You'll know this off the top of your head a bit better than me. August.
Well, singles is like August 15th, I believe, or like 12th or something like that. Yeah, it's
and it's like the 18th to 21st.
It's not far. So basically, the singles event finishes, and then we have a 2-hour gap, and then the team one starts.
Wow.
So it's going to be intense.
So Liam's a busy man, you're telling me.
Yeah, we'll see how many of us get through and push out to the singles and get to the final cut. But yes, it's a wild time, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so like as I was saying, the team format, like for Steel City, we're really hitching our wagon to the WTC format. It's a great format. The guys over there, like their coaching, not coaching, their judging community and the captain community of WTC really know the game and really nail format in a balanced approach. And they're so quick to analyze and build scenarios of and refine the scenarios of competitive 40k. It's really hard to like kind of doubt like their knowledge in that. So like we attach ourselves to that format, but at WTC it's an 8-man event. Steel City is a 5-man event. Why we go to 5 is it's a good midpoint for the amount of players like needed for a team without making automatic pairings. But 8-man is a bit too much and a bit cumbersome for kind of coming in and out of more casual play, like where 8's a very competitive format. So the 5-man comes from more of the ATC style. The big difference with team play compared to singles play is that in teams, each member of that 5-man team can select a faction only one time. So you can only have a single instance of Space Marines, a single instances of Eldar or Custodes, etc. And that really means that you have to get a bit more creative, and move away from those outstanding lists. And you can't just go the same net list. You have to balance out your whole team to kind of account for all these different factors.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And even for those who are watching us live, I've actually got the pairings process up on screen for you guys. And I'll just quickly run through it for those of you who may not have encountered the WTC way of doing pairings before. So the way that this works is that both teams secretly choose their defender and you reveal them simultaneously. And then you secretly choose 2 attackers for that given defender and reveal them. Then the team... So Team A takes the 2 attackers given by Team B and secretly chooses one, which one is refused. And then the other team does the exact same thing, just for their ones. And then refused attackers are revealed simultaneously and return to the pool of available armies. And this is repeated until all the pairings are done at that stage. And then also the captains also roll off to determine which team will get to choose the first table. And this that team gains the table choice token as well. So Hayden, just want to clear that up. What does this really kind of mean in terms of preparing for a teams event where you're not 100% set on what terrain you're going to be facing in a set environment?
So with the terrain, we've kind of got 3 different formats for each mission. A light, you'll have 2 light tables, 2 medium tables, and 1 heavy table. And that's more so of the type of terrain and the density of the terrain that's on those tables. With 10th edition and how it's been designed pretty much by GW, it is, as I've said to Alex before, there's all the ruins. That's not functionally exciting in the way of appearance, but it's exciting in the way of function. And you get the best gameplay out of those ruins and interactions around them. So if you can't change the type of terrain you have, so you can't, instead of having we used to have forests and craters, ruins, you change what type of ruin, how big, how much they cover, how much of the table they cover, and how many of those pieces you have. So that's the real why you want to be able to pick what the advantages of picking the table first is that you could maybe eliminate a heavy table and open up lighter tables for your opponent to have to pick into, with worse armies and worse options. So there's a game on top of game on top of a game with the metagame there, which Alex can really go into with that. I know he's been exploring it a lot lately.
Yeah, look, I think another key concept in design of the difference between lights, mediums, and heavies is also the layout. And that's, positioning of where these ruins actually are. What you get as compared to a singles event where you have usually these dominating factions. Again, if you are a dominating faction but get put into the not desired matchup, or even just a mediocre matchup, but then be put onto the wrong table that doesn't allow you to be the best you can be, that can also impact you. So there's a lot of different ways that you as a team can counterplay others. And it's amazing to see this kind of collaboration approach where you're really trying to think forwardly ahead. And it's not just about your own interest, but it's also about your overall team. Because if you win your game, it doesn't matter. It's about your team getting enough points to make it work. So really cool. It's really engaging. And if anyone hasn't done teams before, I would 100% recommend to check it out. I think the easiest way as well right now, especially if you're around New South Wales area, the Southern Cross Wargaming alike as well, or the New South Wales Tournament Committee page, because they are going to be posting up. People are absolute fiends for it. We love this.
Yeah, 100%.
And sorry to jump in on you there, Scotty, but no, I really think team play is the future of 40k in the way of if it's got any future in participating with things like esports and Magic the Gathering, I think the only way that like you'll be able to capture audiences and continue to like grow as a competitive environment is in teams. It like refines the meta, refines how lists are taken, and it creates a better narrative. Like it's easier to, it's fun, more fun for me personally to follow a team and follow their story versus just an individual. And I feel like that narrative construction that just from that format is something that's really exciting, and like I really enjoy, like as a TO, I really enjoy watching those narratives like play out. And you know, someone might be that Death Guard list or Dark Angels Terminator list or whatever you want to, whatever these like bound to lose but like scratch out games, and they get that one game of the weekend and they win it. That's a bigger win than the guy who just went 100, 100, 100, 100, 100.
And so I guess to kind of give a bit more context around what you were just saying about, you know, the difference between how teams score and compared to individual results. So the way that team scoring works is in the WTC, it's on a 0 to 20 scale. And so correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, on this, that a 10-10 is where you're within 5 points of each other. And then for every difference of 5 points, it goes 11-9, 12-8 the other way. So the winner gets more points, the loser gets less, depending on how big the gap is. So, for example, if you were to have 2 20-0 wins, but you were to cop 2 or 3 significant losses, you might not actually win the round.
That's correct. Yeah, it's really interesting, but what it does is it makes every game matter, right? And that's the best part about it. So you can be put into a bad matchup. You can be put into, you know, say the Eldar, and you're like, crap. But if you have the tools to be able to mitigate as many points as possible for them to score, you're doing the best thing for your team. And that can actually be, you can be the catalyst that actually makes your team win. So it's really cool. You get to celebrate little victories as well. You know, you get to celebrate individual turns, individual games, individual rounds, individual everything. So it's awesome.
And it becomes like, instead of getting paired into Eldar and going, oh, I've lost this, like, I can't wait, I've just got to wait 3 hours for the next round so I can play someone who's not playing the meta list or whatever. You go, all right, what can I do for my mates to make their job easier? What can I do to make everyone else, how can I get behind this, and how can I like strive instead of just putting my head down and like being sad about it? How can I join in and make the best of this occasion? And like, you don't get those down moments. You just have that pat on the back, get into it, and it, like do it for the team. And that's what I love, that camaraderie.
I agree.
Yeah. And something that I've seen over the years, because I've been aware of WTC and everything going on since probably late 7th myself, just seeing how it can very much mean that it mitigates some of the bad balancing in the game as well, because it's not
100%, yeah.
It's not as though you're going to face the same army, as we were saying earlier, over and over again in the run to the top, or, you know, you're going to face the same few armies just because they're the flavor of the month. There's only going to be one of those armies in every game, in every round, I should say. And generally, the way that captains, and from my experience, generally what captains will do, they'll get all the members in the team to kind of do like a bit of a, when the lists are released, if at all possible. I know at the WTC this does occur. The captains will actually get their players to go through all the different countries' lists. Maybe not every country at the WTC, maybe the top and important ones. And go, okay, what's a green matchup? Maybe what's a lighter green? What's a kind of a middle yellow? What's an orange and what's a red? To kind of go, okay, the green is kind of like, this is a good matchup. This is a okay matchup. I can get between 10 and 15 points out of it. Yellow is kind of your middle. Orange is like, oh, I could get a minor loss here, I think. And then red is like, nah, that's a really terrible matchup. And that way, that can inform the captain when they go into doing the pairings of what to actually place forward, because whilst, yes, some factions might be consistent between all the different teams, the list builds will be different, and it'll mean that maybe you might be a red into one team's faction, but it might be a light green into another, for example. So it can definitely vary from team to team as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it changes the breakdown of what factions become present and prevalent in the total metagame as well. Like at the moment, there's clear examples of like certain factions that are really sticking out. like anything with that towering keyword, even though the points changes came through, Imperial Knights are still fantastic. Custodians are an absolute slog to get through, and Eldar can just wipe things off the table even with the changes to Theta dice. So like that's three factions out of your 5. What are those other 2s, like you might ask? And that's when that real creativity comes in. And then maybe you might go, well, we've got other things that are doing what Custodians were doing. Maybe we drop them out to push more attack, more offensive lists, because we're not pairing well. Like, yeah, we'll win 2 games for sure, but like we're not pairing well now. And like that further step and that further thought and that bit of like, not quite scissors, paper, rock, but like different dynamics in matchups really make a big difference to what factions become prevalent and represented. Because
sorry, go on.
Yeah, go for it, Alex. Go.
Not only that, but also, sometimes you might think, well, you already know what the big boogeyman's are. Instead of bringing those boogeymans, why don't you bring other lists that can actually actively counter specific boogeymans in there? So there's some cool things you can do. It's wacky, it's wild.
It's wacky in this in the analytical and thought out way. Like it's not just like I'm just going to bring this because I felt like it. Like I can bring this and be competitive because the team environment offers me that opportunity.
Yeah, and the team's environment also allows for some of those lists that you wouldn't see in singles as well, because they will be specifically there to do a particular job, and 9 times out of 10 they might do that job, or they might not get the pairings that they want, but they were designed with a specific, counter meta, countering a particular faction like Eldari, for example. I reckon a lot of teams might have something that's going to counter them. Stuff like Imperial Knights as well at the moment. I think a lot of teams might have some tech built into 1 or 2 of their lists to deal with those. And so it's coming up with that counter meta as well.
Yeah, specifically the example of like Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights are a very, very one-dimensional army, which is something you quite see in teams, is to like skew to that one dimension. But what that opens you up to is like more of a scissor paper rock game. And in the pairings process, like as we were saying, like you're kind of building these layers of the meta game. Yeah, I've got Imperial Knights and they're really strong, but hey, like, how about you're a defender and here's my 2 anti-knight lists. You've got to pick one of them. And that's where it really kind of like, when that you watch that reaction on that opposing team's face, was like, oh, we've really miscalculated this. Like, we thought we just had it in the bag, but like, oh, some GSC and Space Wolves lists like will just hump me here, and how do I deal with it?
Yeah, for sure. So I reckon, why don't we jump into the missions, gentlemen? Considering that 10th is quite fresh, everyone's still trying to figure out what missions to run. And, obviously we've got the GT pack that was released a couple of weeks ago. But we're going to go through these. These are up on screen for those viewing. So round 1, we've got Hammer and Anvil deployment with Take and Hold, and the primary mission rule is hidden supplies, so the additional objective. So 6 objectives on Hammer and Anvil, pushing 1 to the corners. What was I guess this is a really interesting first round matchup because it kind of creates the Hammer and Anvil version of Tighter Conviction.
Yeah, I myself like to make like the first round the most interesting round in the way of like the mission itself, because if you kind of track the further you go into an event, the more refined the missions need to kind of become. And if you don't take that opportunity early on, they might have more of a swing effect in those more important matchups later on. More where something more skewed might take a dominance. So that's why, like, you got to have a bit of a help me out here, Alex.
You got to have things that can be an active challenge, but also shake things up as well, right? Like, you don't want to have the same formats each time. Everyone knows what they're doing, and then actively plan ahead too much. We want to be able to have people, and the best thing about 40k is the adaptiveness that people can have. Is a tactical-based game at the end of the day. So we want to actually bring out that level of strategy as well, and also keep it fresh, because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, it's boring.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you for finishing that, because that was exactly my thought. It's that like keeping it fresh, keeping it exciting, and offering new challenges to the players instead of like if you played in 8th edition ITC format where it was literally the same missions, the same objectives, like same map layouts over and over again. It was great, it was balanced, but it was boring. You became very formulaic. You were like, I stood here, you stand there, and if I roll more than 3, I win. Like, and that's not that's what we want to try and avoid in that instance.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, take and hold is your primary. You're going to be scoring up to 15 per turn for each objective you hold. So 5 per each, which I think is a good choice when you've got 6 objectives. It means that both players can actively, if they choose to engage early, they can get quite big scores on primary between the first 4 turns. Or if they want to, draw out the game, then they can only sit on 2 and score 40 for the first 2, score 10 for the first 2 turns, and then push out and get full 15 on the second 2 turns. For that scoring as well. So it does add that flexibility for how players can approach this mission, as you were saying.
Yeah. And in a teams format, like you like, I guarantee you, as we walk around the event as TOs, myself and Alex, we'll see every different game will have each player will have their own solution to that problem as well, and like offering that challenge and that excitement to those players is like really paramount.
Yep. Alrighty, so round 2, deployment for this one is search and destroy, so table quarters. This one is the ritual, so you remove all the objectives except for the one in the center, and this is the one where you're deploying objectives yourself, and then no additional mission rules. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts about this one, because I know ritual has had a mixed response currently. So what's the thinking behind its inclusion?
I like the agency that placing the objectives gives to players. It allows for like another layer of depth to it. There is like that, like it can be skewed off a dice roll and things like that. But like in an event like this, like that dice roll, that skew is mitigated across the whole team, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a controversial opinion on this one.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't like it for singles. I love it for teams, because teams have set layouts and you have different tables, and it adds an extra level of intricacy again when you have people thinking about where do they actually want to place these actual objectives. And it can be make or break if you have someone that can actually accurately devise a plan with what units and where they want them to be and what they want them to actually achieve versus their opponent, specifically on the faction that they're playing. It leads to this whole new game, and I think it's really cool. Singles, I'm a bit under the iron about it, because I think it's more hated, because you just have one set table and you kind of, they always want to have like a middle and the ruin in the middle and things like that. Whereas with teams, there's different functions and layouts and structures, and they're all suited based on the actual deployment type rather than the mission itself. So the creativity that you actually get with this is that depending on the mission layout, the deployment layout, this one can be just a complete wild draw, and it's really cool. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no, I can
and
definitely see that.
it like, once again, like when you're in a singles environment, if you lose that like kind of one-off dice roll, or like you kind of misplace an objective or something, and it just kills your vibe, in the teams, you're like, well, now I can kind of just grind out that a little bit more, and it like it's not a committed loss and you just scorn. It's like, how can I make up for my previous mistakes or mitigate that one dice roll?
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
I also like that this one doesn't have any additional mission rule. Well, I think this one helps it a lot, because if you're going to have something, ritual can be quite complex when you're wanting to add in the thinking that Alex was talking about. By adding a mission rule in on top of that, it could actually really complicate it. So I do like the just chilling rain. There's no mission with this, no additional mission rule with this one, so good to go.
I reckon every mission should just be minefields. Screw it. Roll in the vans, blow up. Perfect.
Yeah. chip away.
There was a period of time where we were discussing just bringing the mission deck on the day and let the cards fall where they may, if you will. Just have everyone just rock up and not know what they were going to do. But that might be a bit more fun in a singles environment than a teams environment.
Yeah, it's all fun and games until you get the mission where you have no objectives out in no man's land, but then you also get sticky objectives.
Yeah.
And then the game just does not work.
No.
Cool. So,
but on that, Scotty, we try to kind of keep the mission pack, being so early on in 10th edition, we try to keep the missions pack quite simplified around those primary missions, like the extra mission rules. So we only have hidden supplies and chilling rain. There's no more of those, like Alex said, minefield and sticky objectives and stuff like that, where they're a bit more wacky and out there rules. No kicking servo skulls around and things either. But it's something that we've consciously made a bit of a decision on to keep the focus a bit narrower for such an early stage event.
Yeah, and I mean, even looking at the GT pack that Games Workshop came out with, they've only got 4 mission rules in it, which is hidden supplies and chilling rain. They've got scrambling fields, which means you can't scout, infiltrate, or deep strike onto an objective, or you've got player-placed objectives. And that's the 4 in the pack. So even themselves, Games Workshop have restricted it for competitive play.
Yeah.
And
none of those are like the other two, like scramble and moving objectives. Like they're great in singles formats as well because they kind of bring a bit of a point of interest. But when you go to a 5-man team and go, everybody on every team is not scouting, you might be really handcuffing a list design element in the team creation that we is quite kind of undesirable to us as like a function of like enjoyment.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Definitely see that for sure. So round 3, we've got search and destroy again for the deployment. So table quarters, you've got priority targets for this one.
Yeah.
And then hidden supplies again. So another objective on the battlefield. So 6 for table quarters. So it'll just be pretty much very similar to old school Vanguard, but table quarters deployment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've actually I've played that combination. That mission actually is straight out of the GT pack as well. I actually played that the other week, so it's a pretty good mission. I quite like that. Even though there's 6 objectives, you capped at 10 per turn, and then at the end of the 5th battle round, both players score up to 15 if they're holding 3. So it can really mitigate the fact that you might be able to, if you blow someone away and they've only got a few hiding units sitting on these objectives, for example, then it's like, okay, cool. If they can just stay there and survive and you can't get to them, they could potentially max out primary at the end of the game rather than being stuck on, 40 points.
Yeah, and that's what, as we're kind of saying about drafting your team's lists around certain archetypes. This is a type of, these kind of missions is where, like you said, if someone's really offensive and wants to blow the opponent off the table, if I've got a very hide away, tuck myself into corners and squirrel every little point, I can do something for my team here. It might not be a 20-0, but that 5 points I might bring to the table might make all the difference at the end of the round.
Yeah, 100%. All right, then round number 4 is Crucible of Battle deployment. So this is the angled hammer and anvil with 5 objectives with Purge the Foe as this one. So this is one of the more interesting primary missions. At the end of the battle round, each player scores 4 victory points if one or more enemy units were destroyed, and an additional 4 if more enemy units than friendly units were destroyed at that battle round as well. So it's kind of combining Grind Them Down, the secondary from 9, with your objective holding on top of that as well, where you score 4 victory points if you control 1 or more objectives, and an additional 4 if you control more than your opponent. So I think it's also combining one of the earlier 9th edition secondaries. I think it was, I can't remember the name of it, but it was predicated around you got to hold 3 and hold more than your opponent. And they got rid of that one. I think it was at Nephilim, they got rid of that, so halfway through 9th edition. So I actually quite like they've done a combination here with that mission in general, and then adding Chilling Rain again. It's one of the more complex primaries, so keeping it simple. I like the look of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. There's enough going on in that mission objective that primary objective doesn't have to be complicated. Just bringing more focus to that primary and not having to really juggle all those rules, being so early on. And I'd hazard to say a lot of the players have that not everyone is a seasoned tournament veteran and has the time to play 10 games a week or has the community around them. So some of these guys that are only coming in on maybe not even a dozen games each. So having keeping it simple with those more complicated primaries really kind of lets them kind of settle into their rhythm a bit more too.
Let alone while learning a new edition too, right? It's not as if this is a 9th ed one with just a new mission pack.
Yeah, it's literally a full new edition. It's a month after release as well, so everyone's still kind of getting to terms with it all. Everyone's still getting resources to use and such. So, it's definitely a good methodology. I agree. Then the final round is another Crucible of Battle. So, Angled Hammer and Anvil. Vital Ground as your primary there with Chilling Rain again. So, this one is actually, I like this one as the final mission. Because, again, no mission rule, but you're able to be like, okay, for each objective, I control a no man's land, it's 5 victory points. If I hold my own, it's worth 2. You control your opponent's deployment zone, it's worth 6. And there's no cap on the primary either. So it means if you want to rush out and, try and score as much primary as you can in the first few turns, and then if your opponent just kills you, it's like, cool, I've already got the points. But also in the same way, if you want to hold back, as we were saying earlier, there's also that agency for you to actually do that as a player.
Yeah, and the way I like to think about it is this is a very honest mission. This keeps players honest. There's nothing coming out of left field. There's nothing not predicated on a single dice roll of who goes first, who goes second. There's always a game because the mission is very honest with you. It is up to the player to win or lose, not to the game, not to the mission. It's very, the agency is in the player's hands and the skill of those players. And that's why, simple but refined and very at that end point of the event where we are going to have teams on winning records, duking it out. You can't just let that fall on a bit of wackiness or a bit of dice roll. It's got to be an honest, you, me, we're on the board, let's go mentality.
100%
and that's the spirit of 40k as well, right? It should never be you versus me, strictly speaking. It should be the two of you working towards a resolution at the end of the game. And it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and no one wants to have those feel bad occasions. The greatest thing, the greatest feeling I get from playing Warhammer is losing, but just going, that I made the wrong decision and learning from that and going, hey, I can do that better next time, and having that discussion with your opponent after the game of where did I miss this, or I noticed you did this instead of this, and I these decisions were done, and you just get into this bit of a fervor. That's that heart pounding. That's what I really enjoy about playing competitive Warhammer and competitive tabletop wargaming is that that collection of emotions and thoughts after a game. And that you guys can just be you guys can look at it and go, fuck yes, that was great.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what this honest, basic but intricate mission can do. Intricacy in the basicness of this mission, that's what it can really do for you. And it's a great note to finish on.
Yeah, 100%, which is awesome. Especially after it being, it's the 5th round as well, so everyone's going to be relatively exhausted. So it's going to be seeing who actually has that player endurance to keep on going through and to actually pull out mentally in maybe a tough matchup as well. It could make or break a team's win.
Yeah, 100%. After when you hit that 15th hour of wargaming, what comes out? You might have the wackiest ideas. You might not have any of them. But you challenge yourself.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, let's have a look a bit more at the meta and the actual number of players in attendance, and specifically the number of the teams. I believe we've got 15 teams of 5 in attendance currently. I know, Hayden, you were saying before stream you're hoping to get a 16th team in as well to make it nice and even for everybody, so there wasn't a buy round.
Yeah, and we're 60 to 80% done on that Mercs team, so hopefully I can patch it together by today, tomorrow, and we'll have the list out for everyone soon after that.
Yeah, nice, awesome. So looking at the meta, we've got the super factions up on screen and the faction podium for everyone. So we're going to run through these right quick. In terms of Space Marines, there are 7 players in attendance with 9.3% of the meta, with 3 Adeptus Astartes, 1 Black Templar, 1 Dark Angels, 1 Salamanders, and 1 Ultramarines. So not too many teams taking Marines at this stage of the game, I think. You know, depending on what players might think of Oaths of Moment or what their faction benefits are, they might not be going for them at the minute. It just depends on personal preference, I'm guessing, or what the team needs as well.
It's almost 50% though, right? Like 7 out of 15 is not something insignificant.
Yeah.
Given that you can only run maximum of 15 so far, it's pretty worthwhile noting.
Yeah.
Out of a total, when you talk about like the percentage breakdown, you like if the closer it is to that 20% is like a
20% is the max.
100% representation per team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you're almost seeing 50% of teams having Space Marines. It's a wonder. Like it's not quite that 50% that I would have thought it would have been sitting around the 75. Being like they are very much of a pick up and play at the moment. But yeah, it's an interesting that we still see like a broad spectrum of chapters as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree as a Marine player myself. Then we've got Imperium, which is a catch-all for the rest, and there are 16 players, so I believe this might include one of the Merc players. I'm not 100% certain if I miscounted there. So it's either going to be around 20% at the 15 or 21.3% with the 16. We've got 6 Adeptus Custodes, 5 Imperial Knights, 2 Adeptus Sororitas, 2 Asher Militarum, and 1 Grey Knights. So we've got, each of these are in the teams, at least 6 teams are taking Custodes. So they seem to be quite popular at the minute. And then, as we were talking a bit earlier, Imperial Knights being quite popular as well with their towering keyword at 5. It's quite unsurprising.
Yeah. And I'd say there wouldn't be anything for the Mercs yet, because that's just Imperium we're looking at for the 16. So the percentages will obviously be based on the actual individual faction.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of Chaos, there is 20 players playing a Chaos in the super faction. Yeah, you are 100% correct there, Alex. I did misremember there for a second. I'm not perfect.
Math is hard.
So you got 20 players in the Chaos super faction with 26.7%. We've got 6,000 Suns, 5 Chaos Knights, 3 Chaos Demons, 2 Death Guard, 1 generic Chaos, 2 Chaos Space Marines, and 1 World Eaters there as well. Really surprising considering World Eaters were quite strong towards the end of 9th, and they've dropped right off the cliff coming into 10th. So
people aren't used to the WTC format, which is actually pretty melee head friendly. And obviously people starting up on 9th ed terrain formats, they've seen the raw power of, like you said, towering and Eldari and everything else, just making shooting lanes. So and then obviously that coupled with piling consolidate changes, it's always soured some people. And let's be honest, World Eaters, it usually wasn't like your first army. It was an army that you had a few other options already. So that might be the reason, but that's just my assumption.
Yeah. And
I would hazard to say a lot of people that are playing World Eaters are playing something like Knights or Custodes already. Like they're in that similar kind of vein of like very one-dimensional, very strong in that one being present in the board in one way, and those personalities of players really lean into that that type archetype.
Yeah, 100%. And Feud in chat has just said Custodes make World Eaters cry too.
Definitely do. Yeah, and they're in a really good spot right now.
And then
always vice versa is amazing.
Yeah. And then at the top of the Chaos side, you've got Thousand Suns, which can just put out so many mortal wounds at the moment. And as unexpectedly, you've got the Chaos side of for the Knights as well at five teams taking them. So I think there's a couple of teams that have taken both an Imperial Knight and a Chaos Knight in their team makeup as well. So that's going to be really interesting for people to try and navigate if they've only got maybe one army that is kind of designed to take on Knights at this stage. It might catch them up a little bit.
It's really popular 5-man formats as well. It's a really good way to boogeyman.
Yeah, it really poses a very tough decision of like, do I deal with the Imperial Knights now, or do I deal with the Chaos Knights later in that matchup pairing as well?
Yeah.
And also the map layouts, because hey, if you pair badly and both those knights get a light table, not looking the best for you. If you can get at least one of them on a heavy, that significantly reduces their effectiveness. So that's my best advice to anyone. If you are going to be playing against the dirty double, make sure that you have a really good game plan for not just who you pair into them, but also terrain pickings and everything else.
Yeah, for sure. All right, then we come to the Eldari super faction, which has got 8 players making up 10.7% of the meta. We've got 3 Eldari, 3 Asuryani, and 1 Drakari, and 1 Yanari as well. So interesting. I'm not 100% certain how Harlequins factor into whether they're under Asuryani or whether they're still their own faction. I'm not too familiar with the Eldar side of things of the game at the minute. But still really
they are now 100% within the Eldar or Eldari book.
Okay.
And I believe that WTC is making it now so you can't just run Harlequins and Eldari. They still have the same now core concepts mechanics as well for their army-wide rule. This all just fate dice. So yeah, they're generally just that. Depending on how they organize their warlord characters, functions, things like that, it will just depend on what they're putting their name down as. So
yeah, but primarily Eldari and Asuryani in the same vein. Primarily like craft worlds, what we would traditionally call craft worlds, and then they also catch all in with Harlequins now.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as Yanari. Yanari is a catch-all under Asuryani instead.
Yeah. So 6 teams taking that boogeyman faction at the minute, with Wraith Knights being a thing.
I'd actually say it's probably surprisingly low representation. I thought you would see the 10 to 12 player mark.
Okay.
But at the same time, like being a bit more of a conservative meta in the way of early 10th, not everyone quite having their models ready, things like that. But maybe in 6 to 12 months, we'll see that representation jump if it's not dealt with in the FAQ points format.
Yep.
And let's be honest, most Australians don't follow the traditional meta. Compared to some places like the UK, US, where you'll see abundance of these, we don't follow the same way. We all, even elf players, hate elves. I think here, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
I know as a stocky rounder lad of my years, anything with pointy ears is worth an axe in the head.
You sound like Gimli.
And it's gone in the book, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I love the references, gentlemen. But yeah, no, you're 100% right that Australia, and I've actually noticed this a bit more recently, it's either Australia's ahead of the curve by about 6 months, or we're behind the curve by about 6 months. It just really depends on what's going on.
Part of it is demand, part of it is cost, part of it is our personality types, I think, and being a bit more serious with all of this stuff. But we're both. So we're behind because we haven't got all the models, but then we're ahead because we work out with what we currently have, or with unique things that we have to actually counter it. So that's something we do well.
And thriving in that lack, not having access to everything. And another big factor is we're not geographically dense, specifically Europe. Europe is very geographically dense in players, and for some people, like, it might be like, oh, I'll catch a game a week with like some of the best players in the country. For us, it's like, oh, you might get that opportunity every 2 to 3 months if you bump into them, and let alone carrying your army interstate for multiple hours of travel.
Yeah, it's a bit wild. Like, we'll do another reference for you, Scotty, because you love them so much. But let's think about Dragon Ball Z. Tim Wallace will love this. But the reason why the heroes are usually so strong is because they're usually wearing weighted clothing, whereas the bad guys usually aren't, and they think they're really strong and they're working out well because they've had it easy. But as soon as we take off those weighted clothes, we're machines. That's it. Barefoot, go for it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Alrighty, so the next super faction we've got is the Hivemind, and we've got the highest faction representation in this one. We've got 11 players total at 14.7% of the overall meta. Gene Stealer Cults, 7 teams, so about half of the field have taken GSC at the moment. And then you've also got Tyranids with 4 teams taking Tyranids as well.
Gene Stealers are so underrated. They're so underrated. We don't have a lot of representation there, but the fact that we have 7 teams now, insane. Everyone knows that they've clued on that they're an amazing, especially the teams army.
Well, like I find, like, coming back to that discussion about like the Australian specific meta, specifically GSC and AdMech, we won't see much representation with AdMech with just the state of affairs with them at the moment, Alex. But they're relatively new in the grand scheme of Warhammer. And a lot of their range, more than half their range, has been released in the last 3-4 years. They're quite expensive per model, and you need a lot of models to get those lists to function. Plus, like, they can skew to those models quite hard. Like, for GSC, you'll have to go out and buy bikes one week and then hybrids the next week. And not many people have that opportunity to really yo-yo and sit in that space, capture the full potential of those factions. And so I think that's a very to see those factions shine through in that way is like, you'll see some really good pilots to those lists because they're passionate and driven players for that faction.
Yeah, 100%. And I think some of the country's best players that have been playing GSC as of late are in attendance as well. So it's going to be really good to see how many of them actually can pilot GSC as well as they are meant to be at the minute.
If not the best GSC players in the world.
Well, I mean, I believe from when I was looking at the faction, the best is not playing GSC. He is playing Tyranids.
Oh,
well, he's the best Tyranids player in the world as well, so...
I was going to say, Tyranids are way underrepresented right now. I feel, out of all the indexes, they're probably the most flexible index that can actually make lists that can still function and be competitive, whether that's Monster Mash, Horde, the more tactical kind of base ones, there's weird MSU ones, there's so many different things there. Then there's also these crazy melee hybrids, there's insane Dapper ones, there's so much that they actually have available to them. They have huge range as well, which makes it a lot easier. But
such a depth of data slates.
They're in such a good spot, I think. People aren't glued onto it 100% yet. I think they're going to get a real big shot, but I reckon there'll be quite a few people in the podium that probably have NIDS players in their team.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too surprised at that either. And then for Zenos, we have got 10 players in attendance for 13.3% of the player representation, with 6 Necrons, 3 Orcs, and 1 Tau Empire.
Here we go, boys.
One Otaku Chad, and it's not a massive surprise on the other ones, but we're not seeing any Votan is interesting as well.
Yep.
They're in the pits. Did we see any AdMech?
No AdMech either.
No AdMech, no Votan, but there are some Mad Lads still doing Death Guard, so props to them.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, didn't you hear Death Guard can win GTs?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not really.
To win GTs.
Yeah, not too surprised with the Necrons. From being a relatively fresh Necron player myself and looking at them, they can be resilient as all
It's
heck
busted.
when you stack the buffs on reanimation. It can get gnarly quickly.
Yeah, this edition was about, removing as many buffs as we could. But then we got to the Necron Codex and screw it, let's just put 7 on one unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just revive them and keep it going.
Yeah.
Making 10, 20, 60 warriors just sit there all day. It's just insane. How they're just, when they pick up I think someone reanimated 8 models in my turn. I was like, how dare you?
And it was that from one reanimation, right? Because let's not forget they have Ghost
in one
Rean.
Yeah.
They have the CP Rean. They have the command phase reanimation. And then they also increase that by further amount if they're on objectives. And then they keep reviving these tankier units for themselves or models. They have a feel no pain. They're going to do AP by 1. They can get light cover. They can get stealth as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that goes on there that can be very, very, very egregious. 4-up involves as well. Obviously, I missed that one, but there's so much that you can leverage with them.
Yeah, and we've just had
how dare you miss one of their 18,000 buffs they have at the moment?
And
it's my job to know everything right now.
Yeah. And if you've got the CP, as it's just been pointed out in chat, is that you can actually do the reanimation strat in both your shooting and the fight phase as well, which is you can get a ridiculous amount back in a single turn. It's absolutely gnarly. So,
yeah.
In terms of the faction podium, in first place, to no surprise, we've got Genestealer Colts with 7 teams out of the 15 taking them, being 9.3% of players in general. In second place, we've got a 3-way tie between Adeptus Custodes, Necrons, and Thousand Suns, with 6 teams out of the 15 taking these for 8% of the player base each. And then in third place is both Night Variants, Imperial Knights, and Chaos Knights, with 5 teams out of the 15 taking at least one of these factions, making up 6.7% of the players, not 16. So this means the faction podium overall makes up a total of 35 players, which is 46.7% of the meta tied up in those 6 factions. And all of the teams have taken at least one of the factions that are on the faction podium as well. So, gentlemen, overall, what are our thoughts of the meta?
My biggest call out here is not seeing low representation of Eldari. It's that was quite a surprise to me when the list started to roll through. What we were actually seeing in Eldar being such a notorious bully at the moment, even prior to the even after the FAQ. That still surprised me that they didn't quite make that representation numbers, but the rest of those lists is your usual meta suspects at the moment, I feel.
Yeah, I think in teams, I'd say that Necrons and GSC are probably at the point where they can be as high of a caliber, if not greater, than Eldari and even Knights or Custodes at some points. So it's a bit crazy, but if you had a team of all 5 of those, that'd be definitely a force to be reckoned with. I think that'd be pretty scary. But look, it's exciting. I love the fact that there isn't, something that's post 50% in terms of player, factions per, over the whole, team group. That makes it better. That makes it more fun, more engaging, such that there's 2 factions that aren't represented. But we know how badly shafted those factions are. It kind of makes sense. Yeah, it'll be good fun. It's great to be able to see things and then not have every single table that we stream, Scotty, be the same factions over and over again as well, right?
Yes.
I think that's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. We'll be making sure there's a variety of factions and variety of matchups on the stream as well, which is going to be good because being first stream of 10th on the network, the first round of 10th Ed games, I want to see as much variety as I possibly can and try and get that going as well.
We might have to do a charity and make this Vote 10 stream at one point. We'll get it going.
Yeah, we can work that out. Definitely work that out.
We'll try and hassle. We'll try and shake some trees and get a sympathy stream going on it at some point, Alex.
Yeah, that's it. It's a shame there's no AdMech players around at all in the world. So.
I mean, I know one Botan player we could rope in. I'm not sure if he'd be up for it at the moment, but we can definitely ask.
That's it.
Well, if you're going to if you bring in a knife to a knife fight, like it's all fun and games.
I'll tell you what, I'll make a commitment now. If you set up a charity stream between the two of you guys and make it happen, and we'll donate to a really good cause, I will play 10 hours of AdMech into different factions and hate myself the whole time.
Okay.
Are we going to do like a subathon? Alex playing AdMech into like just the rotating roster of different factions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do that. We'll try and do it before the Codex comes, though I don't have high hopes for that either.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely talk about that a bit more afterwards as well. So to kind of get into a bit more in depth, I want each of us to pick one team we want to have a look at in terms of factions. Now, I will mention this off the bat. For the event, there's pretty much the entire WTC team is in attendance. What the event is actually doing is they're not actually revealing the factions for the WTC players out of respect for them going in almost a month. And, I 100% respect that choice. You don't want to reveal what factions you're playing. You don't want to necessarily reveal what lists you're playing ahead of time. Give everyone a chance to view them and see how they play as well. So,
as well as pairings and what results we get based on that. So it's I want to give a shout out to Hayden for working with us to make that happen, and and being really accommodating for that, because it's really important. It is less than a month. Lists are going to be locked in, I believe, less than a week after the event as well. So this is a crucial period for us. We won last year. We want to do it again, but we also want to support amazing events like this and also get practice. So we're really happy to be here, and it's going to be a blast. It's weird. I'm kind of representing them. I'm representing the ATWN, and I'm representing Southern Cross Wargaming right now. So I'm kind of it's in everything. It's wild.
The threefer.
Yeah.
If you didn't have enough figures and pies there, Alex.
Mate, that's just me, right? It's just people who can't leave anything on the kitchen still. I'm just going to put my finger in it, apparently.
Yeah. They say find a man who can do both. You're the man that does everything.
Yeah, poorly, but yeah.
Cool.
All right. I've forgotten my point. Go, Scotty.
Yeah.
Bring me out of this.
So the team that I was going to pick on to have a bit of a look at, and I'll pull them up on stream as well for everyone. Oh, not the greatest window. All right, we'll forget about it on stream. To actually talk about it is some of the Victorian lads that are traveling up. We've got the Risky Rollers coming in. So you've got Dalton, who is the team captain. He's running an Asayani army. You've got Lawrence, who's running Adeptus Custodes. You've got Edward, who's running Gene Stealer Cults. Dylan running Necrons, and Lockie running Chaos Knights. So I think from reading that, there is 4 out of the 5 top 3 factions in that team.
Yeah, pretty stacked.
Like, yeah. And, it's great to see them traveling up. If you don't know the Risky Rollers, they're a group of guys that do bat reps and live streams down in Victoria. And they've got their own circuit of events that are running throughout the year. And funnily enough, I'm actually making my way down to their August events to do some collaborative commentating with them. So it's going to be great.
Awesome. They've done some huge work there. So yeah, really excited.
They put on some awesome events. Never had a bad experience with them. They're a great group of guys, and really exemplify what it is to be like a great 40k player. So seeing them bring something with a bit of teeth, I'm really interested to follow their narrative through the weekend. I know they'll be doing some like vlog style content over the weekend as well. So like that'll be something that we'll be able to catch up on after the event as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree.
The team I wanted to call out with is one of the Knobs teams under the captaincy of Peter O'Neill. So I just wanted to like these guys, the knobs community. They're really driving this passion for a solid, competitive, and honest wargaming out of New South Wales. Some of the biggest shining stars and coming up out of this group. So they've got representation of Jay Marn playing Thousand Suns, Peter O'Neill playing Necrons, Adam, I'm not going to say your last name, playing Adeptus Custodes, Nathan Bugman, you guys and your hard last names. Nathan Bugman playing Eldari, and Kyle Pearson playing Imperial Knights. Once again, like, I think that's 4 out of 5 for the 4 out of the 5 top representation, and then plus Eldari on top of that. Like, you can't really go too far wrong there.
And not to mention, I mean, T-Suns is a pretty damn good faction too, right? Like, it's, you know, sure, you haven't got GSC, but you got them, so you're in a pretty good spot. They're repping hard. They're trying to push as much as they can. I actually just did a breakdown of like the top 5 teams in New South Wales and seeing how they're going. But right now they're the top 3. They're the 3rd highest team. They were 2nd, but Vanguard is now beating them by 0.81 points. So it's very tight.
Ooh.
So yeah, good on them for doing it. There's another team that I'd like to shout out who is also called Team Knobs, but that's a joke. And that's Michael Rutkai's team. There's a few chat mates there. We have a really good friendly rivalry with the Knobs, so we decided to put their name, just spelled a bit differently, just as a joke. But they've got a weird team. If anyone who knows me, you know, I love the Odd Ducks, and you know, I love the lists or, you know, factions or combinations that aren't the traditional norm. So they're going to be fun to watch. You know, they do have the Necrons list, which is cool. They have a Marines list using Ultramarines, which is always great to see. We've got the Orcs, which is great because they're not, you know, hugely represented, so that'll be awesome to have. We got some
and vastly underestimated too. I
agree. I agree. Low key, I think they're probably one of the best night counters in the game.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that one. And their lucky last faction is actually Imperial Guard. So yeah, they've got a bit of an odd duck one, and can't wait to see how they go.
A very low representation out of the Imperial Guard, considering how GW really didn't touch up indirect too much, like giving them a few point changes and stuff, like which would just make you make more considerations. It's surprising that you don't see a skew list of no line of sight shooting.
Yeah, it's funny because like Manticores didn't just like their nerf, as an example, where I'm just saying Manticores, they're still undercosted. Like they're 135 points now compared to 105. That's so cheap for what they do. So interesting.
Definitely, like, and to throw in there as well, I think that is the most diverse kind of team that I've seen. They don't have any chaos in there, actually. They've got 3 Zenos in the Necrons, Orcs, and Tyranids, and then 2 Imperium in the Marines and Guard. It's like...
Yeah, a lot of Chad Mac players were the good guys. So it's, we can't do any of that chaos for
just shiny polished armor and all moral high ground and everything, right?
Yeah, despite us painting most of our armies grimdark and, you know, very chaotic. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, that's gonna roughly bring us to the end. I want to throw to you guys if you got any shout outs that you want to give for anybody. But first, before we do, I want to thank everyone that's been joining us in chat tonight. It's been awesome. Lefty and Keezy, thank you so much for the follows throughout the stream as well. Really appreciate the support. But yeah, as we've also said, I don't think I actually introduced properly. Hayden is the TO for the Steel City Showdown, and Alex is the head judge as well. So that's why we've got these gentlemen both on. I think I might have missed that at the start. Apologies, gentlemen.
And we have one of our other co-workers, Simon Wine, as the assistant judge to Alex for the weekend as well.
Yeah, nice. So good, solid
do the work.
TO
I'll
team.
just take the credit.
Yeah, sitting in your high school. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, Candy Crush. Let's do it. Any shout outs from your head?
Like I'd love to shout out all of our sponsors for the event. I'll dip away to just bring up my list because we've got such great support from so many sponsors.
Awesome.
Dice Arcade, they're contributing some product support, and like as always, they're great support to offering terrain, boards, everything you ask it. They're there to help. Tim and the team over there. Baron Dice has sent us, if you saw a post during the last week, just a smorgasbord of goodies that are going to go out to the players. It's like we're really excited to share their really quality product. And we haven't started seeing their product over in Australia yet. I had bought some of their resin dice previously for my ScottyD kit, and I just love them. So I really want to show that great product off.
Yeah, and none of them are rigged, guys. So don't put them in the toilets.
Oh yeah. Gosh, that was a hell of a story.
Don't flush your toilet.
Don't try it.
Yeah. You told me off, Alex.
Scotty, come on, mate.
Yeah. Waylon Yutani, building better terrain. Isaac over at Waylon Yutani, he's one of the really key drivers over at the WTC side of things, and also creating these great terrain kits and pioneering, like just really going above and beyond on how you can imagine terrain as convenient and functional and beautiful as you can get for also simplistic and ease of use. So that they're coming in with some amazing gift vouchers. Green Stuff World, it says it in the name, they do everything green stuff and more. Some paint, green stuff, some molds, flock, they're awesome. The guys over at Polymath Tabletop, they might not have heard of these guys too much in the 40k circles in Australia. They're primarily a Age of Sigmar YouTube channel, but they also create some great high quality and cost effective mats, selling some dice and other gaming accessories. Really great. And then a shout out to Game Mat EU as well, creating some of the best game mats in the business. And then, like, just on my final point, we've got another event happening on the Central Coast on the August 26th and 27th. Same kind of format, 5-player teams, but this one is a combined event. We're doing Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar in the same hall at the lovely Ettalong Beach Diggers. So it's right on the beach there. It's in this awesome environment. Great sunny spot, and yeah, it's just really excited to see some more faces there as well. So jump onto follow Southern Cross Wargaming Facebook, and we'll be able to keep you updated with that one.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, any shout outs for yourself?
Look, I think Hayden probably did the most notable shout outs, and I think that's really important. But want to already give shout outs to the players that are coming. This is going to be a wild event. We all know that you're going to be doing some great things, and Hayden, I'll speak on behalf of Hayden here, because he's the one that organized everything. But we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So yeah, big shout outs, and being able to have these events and do all this allows us to be able to make more events and keep doing it and keep it up to the standard that we want to live and run by. So as soon as Hayden put this up, I was 100% keen to jump in on board and help out wherever I could. And yeah, just want to say thank you, right, for you guys to come in and give us this opportunity. It's going to be well fun.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier in the stream, like I find nothing more exciting, nothing more no more of a happy place than being at an event with all my mates and like just watching these narratives evolve, and like I really get to get a lot of fulfillment out of facilitating that and just bringing the community together in these really healthy, constructive, and positive environments.
It's actually so much fun. Like when I did the same thing at CrewCon, it was just wild. You have no idea how much of an effect you can have for people, and you can make that whole weekend and everything like that. You have people traveling everywhere. They're giving you these accolades and support and everything. You're giving it back to them. It's really community driven, which is amazing.
Yeah, 100% agree. And for myself, Hayden, I want to thank you for inviting the ATWN out to cover the tournament. I'm really excited to cover the event in general, being the first 10th edition one we've got on the network, but also at the same time being Teams event. I haven't done a Teams event in more than 12 months. I think the last one we did was May last year at Good Games.
Yes, at the Overwatch 2022 Overwatch Teams. That was probably the last second last big Teams event of after WTC last year as well. Yeah,
in New South Wales, 100%. Yeah, it's good to have it back here, and we have the edge. I mean, Scotty, you're going to be everywhere soon. You're also going to be representing some events in Queensland, so that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun. The team definitely got to shout out Jack, who's doing a ton of work in the network as well. Really, couldn't honestly do it with not just Jack, but the rest of the team as well, chipping in and helping out where they can. Is really appreciated to kind of build the ATWN and expand the network and expand tournament coverage of Australia, because the States have got it, the Europeans have got it, UK have got it. Someone's got to build the Aussies.
Now the best have it.
Yeah, that's
exactly. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I got one more thing. You jogged my memory. No official dates or anything announced yet, but the Overwatch Team Championships will be returning to Maitland before the end of this year. So that's something to keep your eye out for. As always, it's a staple of the New South Wales tournament community, and it's something that we can't wait to put on your calendars.
Yeah, 100%.
Remind me of that, because I've got a 40K calendar for the whole year already booked out for all these events in New South Wales. So I'll share that to you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is so many events in New South Wales. It is gnarly.
Yeah, we're all vibing it, and they sell out almost immediately. So, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the Steel City Showdown Teams Tournament preview. I want to thank everyone once again in chat for joining us. It's awesome to have you with us, and those watching on YouTube, if you watch right the way through, really appreciate you watching us. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you're able to see the tournament games when we come up. So speaking of the tournament games, we are going to be streaming live right here on Twitch from 8:45 or around 8:45 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for each day, and we'll be going right the way through the day. Day 1 has got 3 games. Day 2 has got 2. It's going to be absolutely awesome to see some of these interstate players on display for sure. Gentlemen, also want to thank you for joining us tonight, taking time out of your week to come onto the ATWN and have a good chat about the tournament. It's always really appreciated, and I know the community get a heck of a lot out of it from seeing the hype up of the tournaments that we're going to be covering on the weekend.
That's it.
Just excited for 10th edition and to see how great we can build up the New South Wales community to aid Team Australia heading into WTC as well. These things are just exciting, and just putting our mark on the world. It's incredible.
Yeah. Call me when the 11th hits.
You'll have to study it.
I've already played too much 10th. I'm over
it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Gentlemen, thank you so much, and we will catch you on the weekend from 8:45 Australian Eastern Standard Time from Newcastle, New South Wales at the Steel City Showdown Teams Tournament. It's been awesome bringing you this stream tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll hope that you'll join us on the weekend for the live tournament coverage. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you then.
Stay spicy.